All right, here we are of the Sweat Sesh podcast, episode 3. Today we're joined by West Coast Eagles young gun Elijah Hewett. So Elijah, welcome to the potty.
Thanks for having me. Excited to be in here. Great setup.
Yeah, no, it's good. So we've got some new LED lights today, so hopefully that gives you a bit of a better picture. But let's get into the potty. So I called you up last week and I said, let's jump on the potty and have a chat. And one of the reasons why was, I don't know if you remember, but when we first sort of touched base, you called me to interview me for the job. And I think as an athlete, that is one of the best things ever. I think as an athlete, your body's your asset. And obviously you being someone who knew you were somewhat in draft prospects, people were talking about you being drafted. And obviously you wanted to try and take your sort of athletic performance to another level and just make sure you're doing the right things. Can you remember that conversation? I don't think you can.
I remember initially calling you. I don't remember what we spoke about.
Yeah.
But I do remember calling you, and I remember getting your number from Ben,
yeah,
who'd gotten your number from someone else he knew, like a mutual friend.
Yeah.
But I remember my intentions pretty clearly when I was calling you.
Yeah, and I think we called up for a chat, and obviously we were sort of running through, I guess, what you were doing at the time.
Yeah.
From like, because you were preparing for the draft, basically.
Yeah.
I think you were 16 at that point.
Yeah, 16. Yeah, would have been there.
Yep. So I remember having the conversation with you, and we were going through sort of what you were doing on a week-to-week basis, and it was, I think you were training every day from memory.
Yeah.
Can you remember that?
Yeah, I would have been training every day. Do you know what month of the year it would have been? Was it in season?
Nah, it was definitely off season.
Okay.
I think it was off season.
Yeah, it would have been I remember because it was like gym some days, and then like every off day was like a change in the program. But
yeah. So I remember we had a chat. We sat down for an hour, and I think by the end of the time the conversation finished, we thought, like, yep, I think we'll work well together.
Yeah.
I know on reflection that you were probably doing too much. I think that was the feedback from me. Is that look, you could probably train a bit more effectively, I guess.
Efficiently, yeah, 100%.
And like really sort of dial into what type of athlete you were. Let's do some testing. Let's get a profile of who you are, and then from there, let's devise a program. So it's been 2.5 years now. You've got drafted, which is fantastic.
Yeah.
So congratulations on that.
Thank you.
You've done all the hard work, which is great, and now you're obviously living out your dream as an AFL player.
Yeah.
I know one of the questions we had on the podcast was like talk about maybe those sort of earlier years of like 14, 15, 16 in terms of playing footy. Like what were you doing to, I guess, prepare yourself? Like not everyone knows getting drafted is very hard, as anyone would know. But was there any inkling in the back of your mind that there was potential of that? And if so, what were you doing about it to potentially, improve your chances at that point? Do you know?
Yeah. No, it's a great question. It's a very loaded question as well. Because as a kid, I had a lot of self-belief that I was going to achieve my dreams. For me, it was just a matter of finding the right people around me to support me. And then, as you said, like, being as efficient as I can to get there. And as a kid, I remember early days, my dad and me actually started doing CrossFit at like 12, 13. I'm not recommending this to anyone, but we started doing CrossFit just because that was kind of the mindset I had as a young kid, as I wanted to get quicker and I wanted to get more explosive. And then that aspect of my performance did take off, but then after a few years, I figured I needed to train more like a footy player. And so I remember approaching Corey because that was where I wanted to go. I wanted to be as efficient as I can when I training, and I wanted to get drafted, and that was my goal at the time. And so as a young kid, I felt a lot of expectations, but more from myself. I felt the burden of my own expectations at points, which probably isn't very helpful for performance per se, but I do believe that there was an element of that helped me get drafted. Because I did have high expectations of myself, and I was very clear and thoughtful and intentional about where I wanted to go and how I was going to do it to get there. It was just a matter of time, firstly, and getting the right people around me. And once all those kind of pieces of the puzzle got put together, it worked out really well.
Yeah, I think you have to have self-belief. Like, there's no doubt you need to have some confidence in what you're doing. And like, you pretty much hit the nail on the head there is, find a really good sort of supportive environment which can, facilitate those goals, whether it be a nutritionist. And I really think, honestly, like, while CrossFit has its negative points, it does have some positive points. I think probably early on that would have set a reasonable foundation for you. Because anyone who's watched you play footy, like in the last, sort of few weeks, you are explosive. Like, we know that about you. You are strong. And for 18, what are you, 19?
Just turned 19, yeah.
Just turned 19. So for a 19-year-old playing AFL footy at this day and age, you've got the physical capacity to do that, which is great.
Yeah.
And that's really evident in the way you play. But yeah, let's go back maybe to juniors. Like, where'd you do your juniors? What position did you play? All those sorts of things.
Yeah, so I played my junior footy. I used to live out in the Vines. Played my junior footy for Upper Swan Football Club. Great club. Had some great players like Caniglio and stuff go through. And then at probably year 8, I wanted to move because we were winning all the time.
Yeah.
And I had a mate called Max Chipper who moved to Caversham, so I figured that was the best option for me. To a slightly less competitive team, but the room for development and growth individually was really strong.
So you essentially were seeking out a tougher environment.
Seeking out a tougher environment.
Oh, that's so anyone listening, that's a really good quality to have, definitely.
Yeah, and at that young age, I probably was looking back like a little step ahead of people because that's what I was chasing.
Yep.
Whereas, you know, as a young kid, you kind of just want to win and have fun with mates, which is 100% true, and you need that. But I was wanting to be in a stimulating environment where I had to compete harder and I had to work harder to win. And we actually ended up winning that year. And I remember that being like a real good stepping stone for my growth. Was thinking, like, not in that I need individually, I had a huge impact on the team, but I needed to step up and I needed to have a kind of a leadership role within the team. I needed to work well with the people around me to get the best out of the team, because at that young age, we as a team, we weren't that great.
Yeah.
But to be successful in that group, we had to work really hard, and we became really close. And that was a great time for my football. And then from there, I wanted to go back and play school footy, and that was compulsory. That took priority over overall club and state. So went back to Guildford. I was already at Guildford, sorry, but went back to Guildford priority football, and had a few years at Guildford. Great years of football. So year 10, played first football, learnt so much about the game, and that's probably where I fell in love with the game.
Yeah.
I was playing a lot of baseball at the time, and really competitive baseball, playing for Australia, and that's where I had to make the decision between footy or baseball.
Yep.
And yeah.
Are you happy with that decision now?
Yeah, no, 100%. I love the game so much. I mean, I see a few of my mates getting signed for, $1 mil or $2 mil, and you're just like, and that's just the bonus.
That's good coin. It's good money.
And it's great money, but I'm incredibly fulfilled chasing this dream I have, and I wouldn't want it any other way. And the dilemma with American sports is, unless you're at the incredibly top, you're not getting that money, so you can sit in the minor leagues for 5-6 years.
Yeah.
But you have a good signing bonus at the start. But for me, I was really young and I had to make a decision, and if I wanted to pursue baseball, I probably would have had to move to the States.
Yep. And
I was too mature at that time, and I was loving my football, and I thought this was, chatting today, this was going to be my best option, pursue footy.
Yeah, awesome. Yeah, I think it's a great story. And like, we have a lot of athletes here who obviously go to college. One of our athletes is actually leaving on Sunday to go back to college basketball. And and like, you've got that sort of decision to make. And I think, obviously right now you're sitting here going, well, I think I made the right decision. And you get to be at home. You're drafted by a club in your own state, which is amazing. While they're not going amazingly at the time, like, obviously the club will rebound and become better. But yeah, let's talk about, so for those who sort of don't know, what does like a typical week look like for you right now, sort of in the AFL system? Like, run us through, for those sort of young athletes out there who aren't involved in a professional environment at AFL level, like, what does a Monday to sort of Sunday schedule look like, during the week in season? Yeah,
so in season is very different to the off season, the pre-season, that all changes. But right now, we've got a pretty simple look. So let's just say this week, for example, played on the weekend on Saturday, played away over in Melbourne.
Fly home Saturday night.
Yeah. And then over here for Sunday. And so I'm kind of personally just recovering, and that's the day that I want to chill out, hang out with family, and recover purely. So Monday we come into the club, do a game review.
Yep.
And that's incredibly important as a team. We focus on that and see if we achieved our KPIs. And then Tuesday we do a bit more game review on our contest method, and then later on the Tuesday we'll do a walk jog. So we did a walk jog on the Monday, but on the Tuesday we'll do a bit more of a skills training.
Yep.
And then we'll have weights as well. Wednesdays, which is today, we got the day off. But a lot of boys like to utilise the day off. And if you're a player chasing the edge, Wednesday is a great day to get some extra recovery or
so today's your day off, obviously.
Today's the day off.
Doing recovery in the sauna. One of the best ways to recover is the two best ways to recover obviously is sleep and nutrition, but sauna's a nice bar, it's a really good way.
Yeah, great.
Two birds, one stone today.
100%. And so we'll do that, and I'll probably head off to the club after this and do a bit of touch. And then tomorrow is main training day. So we'll train at Optus, which is great to get a feel for the surface and to open up a little bit, which is great, especially this back end of the season where your body starts to get a bit sorer. You've got to really prioritise this recovery, and then the training sessions become really important to make sure you're locked in, because it's quite easy to go astray back end of the season. So yeah, we have that, and then we'll go back to the club tomorrow, do a weight session, do a bit of prep for the game, as in game plan, etc. And then Friday we'll come in and do a captain's run at the club. So it's just real light skills, tick them over, but then go through what the game will look like, how we want to play our way, all that type of stuff. So that's really important for us. And then Saturday's obviously game day, and this week we got the derby against Freo, which is one of the best scheduled games we have for the year. We really look forward to it.
Is this your first derby?
No, I played the one at the start of the year, the Freo home game, but I was a sub. Came in when Shuey hurt his hammy, and I came in, which was almost a little bit of a blessing in disguise. Love Shuey.
Yeah,
but I came in.
He's retired now, so the man, he was a great player for the club, and a shame he couldn't string more seasons together. But his grand final performance is arguably one of the best of all time. And someone obviously you get to sort of learn from and be around, and you've had a good time to. You're lucky to be around that sort of athlete for that period of time. So okay. So when I talk to sort of guests, I sort of talk about what's one bit of advice you would give your younger self. Now you're only 19, so you can't really give your younger self advice. However, we met 2.5 years ago. So let's say when you were 16, if you could go back now and tell young Elijah at the age of 16 a bit of advice, knowing what you know now. Yeah. Can you think of anything off the top of your head? I haven't asked you this question ahead of time, so this is something that you might haven't really thought of, but is there something that...
Yeah, no, there actually is. This isn't advice I would give to everyone, but to a certain calibre of players. As a 16-year-old, I was incredibly stressed. Yeah. I was very stressed 16-year-old, more stressed than most 16-year-olds should be. Yeah. And I had a lot of anxiety about
because of footy?
Because of footy and because of the draft. And some of that is what you got to bear and cope amidst the whole process of getting drafted. But I think whether it's genetical or that was placed upon by myself, I had a lot of anxiety about that whole process and performance and training. And to a certain degree, it did drive me, but it was an unhealthy obsession. Yeah.
Probably use it to sort of mask that feeling. So you probably keep yourself really busy by training a lot because of that. Yeah,
that feeling. And it eats away at you a bit. But the greatest thing about being in an AFL environment is you get a lot of resources. So currently I see 2 performance psychologists. One, Jodie, my guy, has been with the club for a while, and she's incredible. And you learn the power of the mind and how to, things like we talked a bit about mindfulness and breath work and visualization, how important that stuff is. But as a 16-year-old, I wish I could have told myself that everything was going to be okay. Yeah. And it's easy to say in hindsight, but would I have gotten to where I am if I wasn't so stressed? I don't know. But I wish I could have told myself everything's going to be okay, because I just remember stress and it was unhealthy. But yeah, it would have been okay.
I think, look, stress is a massive part of stress. Makes you better. There's obviously an unhealthy amount, but in athletes to get better, they need to be uncomfortable and they need to be stressed, as you know. But yeah, I think stressing about things that you can't control is probably the difference. Like stressing about, am I going to get drafted? You can't control that per se. You can control elements of at your athleticism, how hard you work and skills and your game analysis and things like that. But some things you just can't control. You can't control injuries sometimes. So yeah, I think that's a good bit of advice for young people out there. Think about trying to enjoy the experience, trying to place too much pressure on yourself, especially at the age of sort of 16. Are you okay talking about ADHD? I know that, so me and you are very similar. We're wired probably a very similar way, where I'm going through my process now of, getting on medication and, figuring out how my brain works. Because I think it takes, I'm 35 now. It's taken me a long time to really figure out who I am as a person, how my brain works. So you went on the medication for ADHD how long ago? About a year and a half?
Yeah, so I would have been, 19? I would have been about 17 around there, yeah.
And have you noticed a difference? Have you noticed a change?
Yeah, so I've actually been off the medication since the start of the season.
Yeah,
just purely on my, this isn't anything external, but personally I didn't like some of the effects I had, and I thought I was in a really great environment whereby people were helping me consistently. It was a very structured environment, and I felt personally that I could get through and succeed and do really well without the medication. Yep. But if I was in a different environment, I don't think I could have. Yep. Probably not as efficiently. But some of the training aspects of the high heart rate and things like that I personally didn't like.
Of course.
But it's each to their own, and I've spoken to blokes that are on it and absolutely loved it. So credit to them if you can work that stuff out. Yeah,
and now you're getting a bit older. We talked about pre-podcast. You just sort of have got the Whoop. So anyone who's not sort of familiar with Whoop, it's really a performance tool to manage sort of heart rate variability. And heart rate variability is a way you can sort of assess an athlete's readiness to perform. It also tracks sleep. The most important thing for recovery is sleep.
Yeah.
So how long have you had it for? And what have you noticed or what have you changed since wearing it?
Yeah, so I've had it for only 4 weeks or so, close to a month.
Okay.
So not a ton, but the way I've approached it, Corey actually mentioned it to me about a year ago, but I didn't listen to him. Being a naive 18-year-old, I didn't realise the benefits there would be to it. But now, having had it for a month, I'm like, this is incredible. Some of the benefits to it, and I'm a great sleeper, but there was definitely deficiencies within my sleep, and so I really worked on creating my nighttime routine, which was really important for me, and even adding small things like my gratefulness journaling and reading before I go to bed. And Corey actually got me. I was never a big reader as a kid, like never read at all. And the first book that Corey gave me was the Ego book, The Ego Is Your Enemy by Ryan Holiday. And since then, I've just read consistently, and I love Ryan Holiday. I've read Courage is Calling, Discipline is Destiny. I love his book, Stillness is the Key.
Yeah.
And so, I want to thank you for getting into reading.
Nah, mate. I think that was sort of my bit of advice to myself. Like, if I was 18 again, I would have read so much more. And I think it's such an empowering tool.
Yeah.
And it was kind of a funny, when I gave you that book, it was like, look, I think you need this from one aspect, but I also think you need to read. And I think I'm so proud to sit here now and listen to you say, look, I love reading now.
Yeah.
Because it's just going to make you such a better athlete moving forward. And I speak to our youth athletes here, and I ask them what are they reading at the moment. Like, I don't read. Like, what do I want to read for? But I hope they're listening to this and thinking, well, it can make me better. And you don't have to read the books that your English teacher gives you.
Yeah.
Most of the time we don't want to read that, right? So it's like, what can we read to get better? Is it mindset? Is it, nutrition? Is it strength training? Whatever it may be.
Yeah.
Find something you like. You mentioned to me on the phone the other day you're reading a new book. Is it The Chimp?
Yeah, The Chimp Paradox. I'm still getting through that. It's quite a detailed read, and I'm trying to conceptualize it all. But if I was to recommend one book, mate, the one I've loved the most is probably The Slight Edge by Jeff Olson.
Okay.
Have you read it?
No, I haven't.
I've read.
I'll add it to my list.
Yeah, add it to your list.
Slight Edge?
The Slight Edge by Jeff Olson.
Okay.
I would have thought you would have read that one.
Oh no, I've read a lot of books.
It's a similar theory to the compound effect, but it's more based around probably, or not necessarily athletes, but people and their day-to-day lives and
I'm assuming it's
habits.
about being consistent with habits.
Consistency with habits and the power of time, like in this generation, where everything is so instant. Like, you click something, you get it straight away.
Yeah.
I think people underestimate the value of time and the value of, people overestimate what they can do in 6 months, but underestimate what they can do in 2 years.
And I think that delayed gratification is so important. Like, a lot of athletes, like you now, have been in like a high performance environment for a year, but you've also been a high performing athlete prior to that. So you understand, like, consistent strength training obviously takes time, and to really see those benefits can take months, years. And I think that's a really important piece for young athletes to sort of grasp, is that that consistency and building small habits, like the habit of just casting a vote. So in the book Atomic Habits, James Clear talks about this thing called, like, imagine you're in an election, right? And there's 2 candidates to vote for. All right, there's one candidate you really want to vote for. So that's a good version of yourself. That's like, I want to be this type of athlete. This is who I want to be, right? So when you wake up and you go for a run, you're casting a vote to be that person. I'm casting a vote to be a better athlete. If I go to bed early, I'm casting a vote to be a better person. But you're not always going to cast really, really good votes. Sometimes you're going to go out and you have a few too many beers and you don't sleep well. So that's casting a vote for the person you don't want to become.
Yeah.
But like an election, you've got to think about the majority rules. So if the majority of your votes are going in that direction to be a better person, that's a win. Now, if the balance is like 60-40, you probably want to try and push that to sort of 70-80. And those habits can be like putting your workout clothes out the night before. So when you wake up, you see them on the bed and you're like, okay, that's the first step. You might get to the gym 5 minutes, 10 minutes, whatever it may be. So that habit formation is really important.
Yeah, incredibly important. I've loved getting into that, because previously, as a young kid, you kind of think it's all about will. And it's something like self-discovery thing as an athlete, like the balance between what is habits and what is will, And I talk to a lot of the guys at the club about this, and you kind of get mixed opinions. But I've found like the balance of the two is because sometimes you just got to gut it out, and you got to be like incredibly disciplined, and the will has to be through the roof. But then there are times where your habits you set you up for such great success. You got to really be inclined to do that, and then even things like meditation stuff, you don't see the benefit straight away.
No.
The breath work, you don't see it straight away, but it's the perseverance and the use of time that sets you up for great successes later on.
Awesome. All right. Couple of questions I asked everyone is what's the album that you're most ashamed to admit you like? Is there like an album or an artist or something that's on repeat on Spotify, or something that just a off the cuff album that, you know, mine's Nickelback. I love Nickelback. I'm ashamed. A lot of people don't like Nickelback because it became unpopular to like them. But is there an artist or an album that for you has, you know, been like a consistent theme throughout your life? Is there something like an artist that you really love that you might not be? Is it like Nicki Minaj? Is it like
I'd probably say One Direction, mate. I remember, One Direction.
Yeah,
I remember being
I can
kid
see that
loving
though.
it. Yeah,
I can see that.
They actually got some great tunes.
I can see that.
Yeah, I think the other day we actually had a fine session, and so one of the fines is you got to sing to the group, and one of the boys out
that's vulnerable.
That's very vulnerable.
That's vulnerable.
And the boys that do it the best are the ones that just accept the vulnerability and get out there and just champ it.
Yeah, you have to.
You got to, and one of the boys.
You can't have a couple of beers even like calm the nerves either. It's just like straight up, right? I mean,
straight up, you got to do it. And some of those high pressure environments, you'd think like playing in front of 50,000 at Optus is hard. This in front of your own teammates inside
way harder.
Way harder. It's ridiculous. But you get through it, and all those kind of things about public speaking.
Now,
stuff.
did you have to sing?
My one was tell a joke.
Tell a joke.
And I actually. I'm not no words of a lie. I had no clue what to do. So then I had to re-roll the dice, and mine was still at a ice bath with a snorkel, so I had to go head under.
For how long?
For 2 minutes.
At what temperature?
The
club?
The club one.
The club ones, I think they're about 10 to 11.
Whatever it was, yeah.
So we're going to do an ice bath after this. I think it's set to 6 degrees.
Oh my gosh, is it?
Yeah, it's cold.
That's ridiculous.
It's cold.
That's so good, but
when Westy and that came in like a while ago, we did 3 degrees. For 8 minutes. He'd be fine. How are you feeling at the moment? So we're 22 minutes in.
I'm feeling good, mate.
Feeling good?
I'm feeling good. The water's helping.
Yeah, the water's definitely helping, yeah. Got a bit of precision hydration in there too. Make sure you get your sodium in when you're sweating a lot. All right, so meals. So what's your favourite meal at the moment? It could be a smoothie, it could be breakfast, it could be dinner. Like what's the one meal a day that makes you excited?
Yeah, well, on my off days, I'm loving making like a big breakfast. I'm a big breakfast person.
Yeah.
So I'm loving like a poached eggs and toast, smashed avo, a bit of feta.
Yeah.
And then bit of bacon on the side. So on the off days, I'm just like absolutely loving that. I love my smoothies on my main training days in the morning. Yeah. Maybe with a piece of toast or two. But my dad, I'm still living at home. My dad's an incredible cook, so he I guess the go-to for him would be butter chicken. And when when the days when you need it, it's just incredible.
Yeah, so butter chicken would be a great meal after a really hard training day.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Is there any? So obviously when you went to the club, I think when you got drafted, I think you were 84 kilos.
84, yeah.
I think there was a bit of a transition period there where obviously they're learning a bit about you.
Yeah.
You've got probably a program that's a little bit different to what you're used to, and I think you got to 88.
I got to 88, yeah.
It's 88.
Maybe even a bit more, 88.2, 88.3.
And you felt, I think you said you felt at that level. You felt like a little bit slower.
Yes.
And so what transcended there? Like, so what did you do? Just sort of, was it like a nutrition change? Was it like a bit of strength training change? Was it a bit of both? Like.
Yeah, it was a bit of both. So. Kilo, who's our strength coach, I went to him and we were on the same page, and it was I had to drop a few kegs to get to game weight.
Yeah.
I was probably 2 kilos over game weight. Right now I'm kind of playing weight at 86.8, 86.7. That's with pure hydration as well.
Yeah. So
which I'm loving.
Yeah.
So yeah, we sat down and we went through all our reps and went from chase more power, less reps. Obviously, you were all over that, which is kind of all the stuff we did as well.
Yep.
So I was used to that, and I was on board with it. And then a bit of portion stuff as well with my eating, probably reducing portion sizes a bit. But then also being very skeptical of when men training is you've got to still fuel.
Yep.
So I had to be very meticulous in my off days on my fueling, and maybe reducing a bit of carb intake on certain days.
Yeah. I think it's funny, like, the longer you work with athletes, the sort of more you get to know how they respond, and you're definitely someone who responds really well to gym.
Yeah.
So like high volume, like sets of 8s and 10s and 12s, you're going to put size on real quick.
Yeah.
So anyone out there listening, like, it's really good you really should get tested, really find out what type of animal or beast you are when it comes to the weight room. because some athletes can put on weight really quick, and there's other athletes out there right now who are listening going like, it's almost impossible for them to put on weight on. So really get a detailed nutrition plan and some supplementation plan. Are you on any supplements at the moment?
Yeah, so currently I'm beta-alanine.
Yeah, awesome.
Which I started at the start of the season. I loved it.
Did you get the tingles?
I got the tingles.
Yeah.
I think 2 weeks of tingles, and after that you kind of get used to it.
Yep.
Which a lot of people, like a few boys at the club got on it recently, and they were like complain like, oh, the tingles. But I said, get through it, boys. 2 weeks, you're good.
Suck it up.
Suck it up for 2 weeks.
You'll be fine.
But it's a really good supplement. I found that great. I was on creatine for a bit at the start of the season, but
that whole size and weight.
But yeah, considering all that, I got off it. But I'm definitely going to consider it back in the off season. I think it's a great. A great resources and supplement, but yeah, I think as of right now, back in the season, I'm not looking to change anything.
Yeah, so beta-alanine, for those who are listening, it's a supplement that basically increases your ability to repeat high speed efforts like over a session. So think of like repeat sort of 50-meter efforts or repeat 40-meter efforts, which obviously football is very important. And one of your strengths is the ability to break lines. Like a couple weeks ago, you hit your first goal.
Yeah.
Congrats.
Thank you.
We'll definitely talk about that in a second. But your ability to break through a contest, get the ball and kick the goal before most people have noticed is obviously your strength. First goal. Obviously, the celebrations were wild. We loved it. Everyone who's a West Coast fan was like, how good is this? The club's in not a great spot, but we've got some young rookies who are coming up and really showing your way and stepping up. So talk me through your first goal. It was a set shot, wasn't it?
A set shot, yeah.
Nervous? What were you thinking walking in?
Look, I've told a few boys at the club, and if you watch the vision, like I'm highly embarrassed because I didn't even realise the ball had been thrown up. I was a bit gassed. Was in the goal square, deep link. Crowd's kind of roaring and you're thinking this is pretty good.
Yeah.
And then the ball gets thrown up, Shui gets a clearance, my head's on the ground. I didn't even realise I got the clearance. And then my player's head's on the ground as well.
Yeah.
And then I hear the crowd roaring, so I start leading out on a 45 degree. Shui laces me out and I go back. I'm thinking, what are the chances of this? Like, and
how good would this be?
Yeah, and the whole, like, the setting around it was incredible. Like, the fans just screaming and it was actually a good time in the game whereby the goal meant a lot.
Yeah.
So I have a routine. Originally, I never had a routine, whereas recently I've kind of developed that working with our forwards coach. Went back, did my routine, was actually quite confident, and the difference it makes in your confidence is incredible having that set shot routine.
Yep.
And then I kicked it and turned to the crowd, and the rest is history.
Yeah. Now you kicked another goal.
Yeah, second
in
goal.
that game. Second goal, same quarter, wasn't it? Third quarter?
Third quarter.
Third quarter, yep. Now, you love the celebration, which is great. And I think West Coast are up by like 30 points. I'm guessing. It was around 30 points.
Yeah,
it was something like that. And you're just giving it to the crowd. It's going, let's get behind us, which is amazing, right? But we obviously go in to lose the game, which is not great.
Grim.
Would you have changed that celebration? Are you happy with like, yep, nah, I wanted to get everyone involved. I wanted to get everyone out and about.
Yeah.
Knowing the result, like obviously it's easy now knowing the result. In the moment, you're probably like, nah, we need this. Like, we need a bit of celebration here.
Yeah, I've actually thought about it quite a lot and spoken to a few people about it. I'm not thinking about it that deep, but the fact we lost, you just go, nah, you probably. But at the time, the crowd was like really getting involved, and the difference it makes for it as a player when the crowd's actually on your side. Like people don't understand the difference it makes. It's like
the
actually
energy you feed
incredible,
off. Yeah.
and you feed off it. You could be versing the best team in the comp, and you got 40,000 fans. And it's just like, this is ridiculous. So at the time, I was loving it, and I think the boys really enjoyed it. And speaking of the boys after the game, they loved it. But we went on to lose, which isn't a great look. But I think just the fact that there are some young boys that are creating some excitement, and it was a feeling we haven't felt for a long time as a club. Like, I mean, the whole season we've just been getting smacked. So.
Oh, yeah, of course, yeah.
It was one of those things, yeah.
Yeah, I think one of the things, you'd be surprised with research, like when you're doing a task in front of close friends and family, like it's hard. And you somewhat perform better in that situation, right? Because you're their peers, you respect them. But the research it surprised me a little bit, but you actually sort of perform better in front of strangers. So
really?
Yeah, which is kind of ironic. You wouldn't really think that, but so you drawing, so the people who are listening, who are in the crowd, like that energy, athletes feed off.
Yeah. So
it's a really important thing to bring up. So we're 30 minutes in, on a scale of 1 to 10, how uncomfortable are you right now?
10 being incredibly uncomfortable.
10 being like incredibly uncomfortable.
I'm 6.
You're 6?
6.
Okay.
The last 2-3 minutes. I'm probably 7. 2-3 minutes I'm starting to hurt.
All right. Well, if you're 7, I'm probably 6.8, I reckon. So
yeah.
We'll get another few minutes, I reckon. All right. So what's the forecast now? So focus now, obviously the season's obviously done and dusted in terms of us playing finals.
Yeah.
Is there a shift in mentality now for you as a player? You as like obviously off season. Is there any trips or plans to have some time off?
Yeah.
What are you doing?
So yeah, in regards to the mentality, we're big on right now. We're fighting for our integrity as a club. You know, we are out of the finals race, but we have fans that show up regardless of how we're going. We have the best fans in the country. Like that's
We've got 100,000
members.
Crazy,
and,
in the worst year ever.
Worst year ever, and they show up, which is just incredible. And we talk about it a lot as a club and as a playing group, and you know, we owe it to them to consistently show up. And we got another big game this week against Free, and we're going to show up. And for the next few games, so especially with some of the boys, the greats of the club that are sending off.
So are they? So that will this be their last game? I'm not sure.
I'm not sure, mate. Touchy subject. I don't know what's going on, but whether they're out there or not, we would be giving 100%. But that extra spark potentially in that last round against Adelaide when they're playing will be huge, just because we love them and respect them so much as people and as players. To send them off in a good way will just be incredible.
Yeah, I mean, Herney and Shuey have had amazing careers, and Herney is like a specimen for his age. I think he's like 36.
36 now,
he's my age. I can't even imagine playing AFL at that age.
Yeah. Trip?
Yeah, trip.
So I am currently right now heading over to the States mid-October, doing, I haven't even told you about this yet.
No.
I think not going for long, probably like a 10-day trip.
Yep.
I'm seeing a bloke, a mobility bloke, who some of the blokes love, and my manager's helping me set this up.
Do you know who it is?
Mate, I'll get not Aspire, something like that. Fifey and Boki have seen him. The Port Adelaide boys went over last year.
Okay, yep.
And so yeah, he's supposed to be really good, and I think just going overseas for a trip and then getting some of the best help you can in America is great. And as an athlete, you're kind of always chasing that edge in the off season.
That 2%, yeah.
And I've had a few niggles this season. So making my body more durable and a lot of the stuff we talk about, a lot of the mobility stuff is going to be important for me. Sleeping well. And yeah, I think the number one thing I'm prioritising is the simple things. I think people overlook them, like the eating and the sleeping and the hydration for me are the three things I'm chasing.
Yep, awesome.
And everything on top of that is a bonus.
Yep.
But those are like the three. If I had to cut everything out, I'd be keeping those three.
Yep. And that's a really good bit of advice.
Yeah, great advice.
For athletes listening. So they are the three cornerstones of Foundation. At the moment, are you lifting twice a week in season or 3 times a week?
3 times a week currently. The first day's almost like a half session. It's quite light. That's on the Monday.
Yep.
And then Tuesday, Thursdays are our big days.
Okay. All right. And probably one more question. Any bit of advice for young athletes out there? Like, I know we sort of touched on what your bit of advice would be.
Yeah.
You know, like, is there anything you would sort of... It might be retouching on something we've already discussed, but is there something that you would say to like a 15-year-old or 14-year-old now and go like, this is what I would recommend you to do? Yeah,
I kind of touched on it before, but just the power of time. Mm-hmm. I think a lot of boys aren't where they want to be, and females aren't where they want to be, but you have a good plan, you get the right people around you, in 2 years' time you have no clue how good you could be. And I see that in some of my best mates like Ruben Jimby, who came into the draft year, I didn't even know his name.
Yeah.
And he's just come out and just gone incredibly well because he's quite intelligent, got the right people around him and focused on the power of time and the compound effects of training sessions and mobility and all that type of stuff. And so I think some young people, I tell my little brother all the time, like, you may not be where you want to be, and that's great because the hunger you feed off that is incredible, but just utilise that in the right way and don't think you're going to be where you want to be in 2 months, 3 months.
Yeah.
Like, it takes time.
I love that. And I could have said it better myself, honestly. That's really good. Time is key. Like, it takes years to become a really good athlete, especially in the gym and in the performance space. And like 10 years of like consistent work, building small habits is a really big part of that. So, mate, Elijah, unreal podcast. It's 34 minutes in now. Awesome. So we've done well. You've got to make sure you hydrate. We're going to jump in the ice bath now to cool off. Thanks for your time. Really appreciate it. Thanks for trusting us with your body.
No, awesome.
Means a lot. Good luck for the rest of the season.
Thank you.
Good luck for your off season.
Yeah.
Enjoy your trip.
Yeah.
And until next time.
Thanks for having me on, bros. Appreciate it.